I'd like to welcome everyone to the Mixed Methods webinar series brought to you jointly by the Mixed Methods International Research Association and the International Institute for Qualitative Methodology. Today we're going to hear from Dr. John Creswell, speaking on mixed methods to include in your mixed method study, proposal, or application. I'll just give you a quick rundown of how this webinar will work today. You are all muted right now and will be muted for the duration of the presentation. After the presentation, if you have a question, you can raise your hand and I will give you microphone rights. If you don't have a microphone, you can just type your question into the chat and then I'll read out your questions. So before we begin, I'll just introduce the speaker today. John Creswell, PhD, is an adjunct professor of family medicine at the University of Michigan. He has authored numerous articles and 26 books on mixed methods research, qualitative research, and research design. While at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, he held the Clifton Endowed Professor Chair, served as director of a Mixed Methods Center, founded the SAGE Journal, the Journal of Mixed Methods Research, and was an adjunct professor of family medicine at the University of Michigan and a consultant to the Veterans Administration Health Services Research Center. He was a senior Fulbright Scholar to South Africa in 2008 and to Thailand in 2012. In 2011, Dr. Creswell led a national working group of mixed methods practices at the National Institute of Health, served as a visiting professor at Harvard School of Public Health, and received an honorary doctorate from the University of Pretoria, South Africa. In 2014, he was the president of the Mixed Methods International Research Association. In 2015, he became the co-director of the Michigan Mixed Methods Research and Scholarship Program at the University of Michigan. We are very honored to have you here with us today, Dr. Creswell. I'll just put over your presentation and then we can get started. Okay, John, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'm delighted that you've joined this webinar, and I appreciate the University of Alberta taking the lead in allowing these webinars to go forward under the sponsorship of the Mixed Methods International Research Association, MMIRA. I'm assuming that you have some background in mixed methods research, and what I thought I would do is focus on some of the advances in mixed methods research. I've been involved in this field as it's developed since the late 1980s. You probably know that I've written several books on mixed methods research. I'm working on the third edition of the Mixed Methods Research Design book with Plano Clark right now. I have this concise introduction to mixed methods research book that came out last year. I've been teaching courses on mixed methods at Michigan and at Nebraska and other places around the world. And then in 2007, I co-founded the Journal of Mixed Methods Research and became the founding editor, founding co-editor of that journal, and then became the president of MMIRA last year. I've been working with NIH and federal agencies, and I'm really excited about the training program we have going on right now at Harvard and Johns Hopkins. It's an R25 NIH educational training program where we are training 50 health science researchers in mixed methods research. And each fall around November, we take in a new cohort of scholars, about 14 scholars, and they work on their NIH or applications for other federal agencies, and we help them put into it rigorous mixed methods research. And then at Michigan last November, we founded the Michigan Mixed Methods Research and Scholarship Program, and we've been giving national workshops out of this program. So our next one will be in July, which is going to be July 14th and 15th in Ann Arbor. And this will be a focus on publishing your mixed methods study. So Dr. Mike Fetters, who's the current editor of JMMR, myself, Tim Guetterman, who's there at Michigan, and a couple of other people are going to be working with those who show up as participants in the workshop for a 3-day workshop or 2-day workshop on how to write up and publish your mixed method study. So today I want to talk a little bit about some of these advances since I've been around this field for almost 30 years. Hopefully you'll have kind of a basic understanding of how I view mixed methods research. And then I want to focus on 10 advances that are out there. Since I've been involved with so many different communities in the mixed methods field, I'm at the intersection of a lot of conversations about recent developments. And some of these are coming out of Michigan right now. So I want to talk about some of these advances and give specific examples so that you can think about how to incorporate these in your own projects. I want to begin with just what I see as essential characteristics of doing mixed methods research today. You know, I'm an applied research methodologist. So I'm going to start by saying that mixed methods involves the collection and analysis of both quantitative and qualitative data. You know, for many years, both forms of data have been collected, and they've been collected rigorously, which is my second point. Rigorous in terms of sampling, recruitment, the types of sources of data, the types of data analysis. But it's this next point, integration, that really makes mixed methods unique. Because mixed methods is more than just simply collecting quantitative and qualitative data. It's also looking at the integration, the mixing, the linking of both forms of data in a project. That's what really makes this methodology stand out from all other methodologies. Then these integrative procedures are incorporated within larger designs, mixed methods designs. It's not unusual that mixed methods, as it's evolved, would come up with specific designs, much like quantitative came up with the randomized control trial, the true experiment, quasi-experimental designs, single subject designs, survey designs. And then qualitative came up with its own designs as well as it became fixed into the social and health sciences through the 1980s, 1990s, such as ethnography, grounded theory, phenomenology, narrative studies, etc. So mixed methods has its own designs. And then also, finally, within these designs, one typically uses theory and possibly philosophy to frame the study. So as I said, this integration piece is really a key element in thinking about mixed methods research. By integrating, we are not only coming up with quantitative results and qualitative results, but that combination means really mining the data in more detail. There are quite a few discussions of late on how to integrate what it is, how we can visualize it, how we can even write scripts or to describe it in our projects. You could say that mixed methods is a methodology framed around the idea of gathering both forms of data and their analyses, and then integrating or combining the two data sets. I think that's really a key distinction. I bring to mixed methods some epistemological assumptions, philosophical assumptions that I try to articulate whenever I talk about mixed methods. I view it as consisting of multiple ways of viewing the world, that the quantitative and qualitative data are separate. They're distinct ways of gathering data. Quantitative is more closed-ended data. Qualitative would be more open-ended. My stance is also to talk about the equality between these two approaches to research, quantitative and qualitative. I'm going to privilege both forms. And I think really what makes mixed methods so intriguing and what has helped expand it across disciplines around the world is that it's very practical. I would say it's even intuitive. You know, if you turn on any of the news channels in the evening and watch them, especially about the election today, you're going to get the statistics of what the polls are telling us, but then you're also going to get interviews with individuals. And so they're putting together a mixed methods broadcast. And I could extend that perspective to a lot of different fields right now. So I think it's very intuitive. I think people resonate with this approach to research. Many people, however, then they come to mixed methods, they don't necessarily separate out the quantitative and qualitative databases, which I, of course, talk about as closed-ended versus more open-ended. You've got to sort out those two databases and know. Now, some databases, of course, are both. You know, patient records can include both numeric data, closed-ended, as well as physician notes or scripts, you know, some text data. So some sources are not clearly quantitative or qualitative, but I think thinking about your databases as quantitative or qualitative is a very helpful starting point. And even to actually list them out separately. So in our workshops, we have people really develop two columns. List out your sources of quantitative data, list out your sources of qualitative data. You'd be surprised how many people come to mixed methods that don't really think that way about two distinct databases. And that then when we start putting these together, we're really mining this data a little bit deeper, and it's going to provide additional insight. A word for this might be synergy, or if we want a formula, so here I'm giving a word plus a numeric rendering, but my colleague at Michigan, Mike Fetters, has an equation, 1 + 1 = 3. And that means that quantitative plus qualitative, when you add the two together, when you link the two, when you integrate the two, you're going to come up with some additional insight. Another situation that's occurring today is that it is mixed methods is becoming more and more popular across many, many fields. You see the list here. I presented at each one of these groups, and typically it's our national conferences where I do a keynote or I do a workshop and talk about mixed methods research. And some are probably further along the line of thinking about how to do good, rigorous mixed methods than others. For example, some of my colleagues in family medicine would contend that they've been doing that for the last 15 or 20 years. For other fields, you know, such as psychology or music therapy, you know, they're fairly new to this field of mixed methods research. Many people are not necessarily reading the literature on mixed methods. I would estimate we have about 30 books out there devoted to mixed methods research. So there's a huge volume of literature where one can cite recent books. And I put my book with Plano Clark up there on the left at the top, but it's just one of many. And these are different books from different perspectives and different fields. So I do have some background over the years of thinking about, you know, what are the advances? What are the latest techniques? What are the cutting edge ideas that you ought to think about as you talk about your mixed methods project? So I'm going to go over 10 of these, and some of these I'm going to rapidly go over just because of our time factor. But I'm going to talk about what skills are needed. There's been some very nice development in that area. How to create study aims or purpose statements, how to write a justification, designs, drawing diagrams. In other words, arraying the quantitative and qualitative findings and results together. Integration, creating joint displays, using conceptual frameworks, this question of validity and how that's addressed in mixed methods, and then I'll end with a discussion about multiple publications. Now, I'm going to talk in terms of where we've been and what are some of the cutting edge ideas under each one of these 10 categories. So where did I come up with these 10 points? many of these are included in the NIH working group document, Best Practices for Mixed Methods Research in the Health Sciences. You can Google that term and read this report. This came out in 2011. There were about 20 people on this working group that put this out. It became extremely popular for NIH as soon as it was put up on a website. I'm going to also draw on ideas that I've learned in this NIH R25 Mixed Methods Training Program. This is the program I spoke about that's based out of Johns Hopkins in collaboration with Harvard and the University of Michigan. We've been talking about some of these advances, and people are putting these into their applications for funding. A new thing that's come along that you may not have heard about is that the APA Style Manual is undergoing revision right now, and it will come out in 2017 as the next edition of the Style Manual, the 7th edition. But what is fascinating here is the American Psychological Association has created a panel, a task force to actually put together guidelines for qualitative and mixed methods research. So there'll be some guidelines on how to write up a mixed methods paper for publication in that new manual. So this is an exciting new development. If you think about the reach of this manual all around the world, both faculty and students, now mixed methods will be out there in a rather substantial way. And then in 2013, I was a visiting professor at the School of Public Health at Harvard. I actually taught a master class on mixed methods research. And from that content, I then assembled this concise introduction to mixed methods research book from Sage. It's very inexpensive. It's available on Amazon and as an iBook. And this just attempts to summarize some of these advances that I'm going to be speaking about. So let's first talk about what we know about skills that are required and the developments in the skill area. We know that a mixed methods researcher needs to be trained in quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods research in order to conduct this form of inquiry, or alternatively, to become a member of a mixed methods team. We know that in writing proposals for funding, especially, the investigator skills are very important, and you would need to document your quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method skills, and your experiences in those areas. Some of the advances, we're learning about how to convey what mixed methods is. We have an instrument to assess readiness now, and we know a lot more about team dynamics than a few years ago. You know, you can learn about mixed methods from courses, books, workshops, apprenticing with mixed method scholars, and now the training program and our workshop at Michigan on publishing, or any of our workshops that we're giving at Michigan on mixed methods research. So there's a number of ways to learn about it. I'm always surprised when I see people, you know, put in applications for funding where they've not cited any of the recent literature, or if they do cite something from mixed methods, it's a work that's 10 years old. And I just think that being aware of what books and articles are out there is very important. My colleague Tim Guetterman, Dr. Tim Guetterman, who just won the MMIRA Dissertation Award, has put together a study of how to assess a person's readiness for mixed methods. And this could be used in classes, it could be used in workshops. It's basically a form where you identify your quantitative and qualitative and mixed method skills. And people that are working with individuals can look at that skill base to help them firm up some of the skills that they may not have in the quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods. And you know, there's been a lot of discussion in the last couple of years on mixed methods teams. fact, in my Harvard class, that was one of the key topics they wanted to know more about. We know about how to compose these teams. We know how to build some common understandings among the team members. We know what leadership needs to be. One of the keynotes at a regional MMIRA conference in San Antonio last summer, you may have been there, was on the topic of creating a mixed methods team. So we're learning a lot about that topic. The second topic, looking at study aims, the purpose or objectives or intent or goals. And I'm going to give you kind of what I think is the direction that we're headed in terms of writing good study aim or purpose statements. The first thing is to think in terms of three aims: a quantitative, a qualitative, and a mixed methods aim. Now, you won't find a mixed methods aim really discussed in many books, although when I was editor of the Journal of Mixed Methods Research, Tasha Corey and I wrote an editorial on how to write a good mixed methods study aim. These study aims really get to the topic of how you integrate your data. And I believe what we're experiencing right now is we're linking these study aims into the different types of mixed methods designs. And we're learning how to actually, what language to use in writing up these aims. So for example, linking it to a design, one mixed methods aim might be to compare the qualitative interviews. These are all fictional situations here. Qualitative interviews about the elderly self-esteem with their perceptions on a survey about their self-esteem. You know, that is phrased from a convergent design, mixed methods design perspective. I'm going to go into these designs in just a moment. Or another aim could be to explain the results from the survey about self-esteem with the elderly with qualitative focus groups, explanatory sequential design. Or another aim to explore the meaning of self-esteem for the elderly, to develop a survey based on their qualitative interviews, and then to administer a contextually specific survey instrument, exploratory sequential design. And when you look at these mixed methods aims, you should be able to see in here quantitative and a qualitative part. And you're going to see how the two are linked together. So our best practices working group at NIH actually spent quite a bit of time talking about how to create these aims on a good mixed methods project. And the way we talked about it and the way it's written about in our guideline is first talk about the content followed by the methods. So for example, to relate personal isolation to depression among older adults based on survey data, it's quantitative. Then to explain how personal isolation affects depression in older adults by obtaining personal experiences. That's really a mixed methods aim. We're linking the quantitative and the qualitative together. And then the third aim, to explore personal isolation among older adults using semi-structured interviews. That's a qualitative. So you see, as I'm writing these aims, I have a quantitative, mixed methods, and qualitative. Now, that doesn't mean I can't have other aims, such as aims organized towards future research. But if you look at the order, the word order in these aims, it goes from the content, ends with the method. That may seem like a small point, but you know, a lot of people start with their methods, and the reader is trying to figure out what is the content that's really being examined. So that would be a good order, and that was what was recommended as practices. Now, in most good mixed methods projects, there's a justification statement, a rationale or reason for why you are collecting both quantitative and qualitative data and why integration is important. Well, we know something about justification. We know that we need to justify mixed methods today. It's a new methodology. This is very similar to me to what happened in the middle 80s with qualitative research, where qualitative was really relatively new in the social sciences, very new in the health sciences. People had to justify why they were using them. When you go into the mixed methods literature, this section is often called the reasons or the rationales. There have been a number of rationales. Alan Bryman from England has a list of, I believe, 16 different justifications. It's important to have a justification statement somewhere in your mixed methods project. So what we've done now is we've begun thinking about how we can link these justification statements to a specific mixed method design and actually coming up with scripts for justification. So I'm giving here on this slide some examples of justification statements. And I'm highlighting the words that one typically finds. If you have a convergent design, you want a deeper understanding. If you're going to do an exploratory design, enhance the sensitivity by first exploring qualitatively. There might be a mixed methods feminist design, giving powerful voices to women's experiences. What is the reason for why you're using mixed methods research? And then there are scripts that are being developed now where certain words are used that match these designs. So if you're going to do a convergent design, you're comparing, merging, contrasting, validating. And you can see the words on the right here that I would link to the designs. This came about through our R25 program, where the scholars that we were training just simply said, tell me what the language would be, what the sentence would be that I could use to justify the use of mixed methods in my project. And our response always was, well, let's link that over to the type of design. Which takes us right into this topic about designs in mixed methods research. This topic has been discussed probably more than any other topic in the field of mixed methods research. And these designs are procedures for conducting the study. And there have been a lot of different typologies of these types of designs. In my book with Plano Clark, we talk about, I believe, 13 or 14 different classification systems. I think the person entering mixed methods is somewhat confused by all the different possible designs. And of course, they're always trying to figure out what is the particular design that I'm using. What has developed here, in my thinking, and the way I'm writing about it, is that there are 3 core designs and many applications, if you want to call them complex applications. And then furthermore, design is so important to me that once you figure out what design you're using in your mixed methods project, it's like a flower that opens up with many different fingers. It helps you think about a lot of different aspects of the research process. So I'm going to illustrate some of these advances. First of all, what are the core designs that exist in mixed methods research? One that we talk about is the convergent design, where we're bringing quantitative and qualitative together. We're merging the data. It's basically the intent to compare the results from both databases. An explanatory sequential design. This is where you begin with your first phase of quantitative research, come up with your results, and then some of those results may be surprising or contradictory or need further explanation. So you then have a second phase of qualitative data collection analysis in order to help explain those initial phase 1 results. Explanatory sequential design. And then the exploratory sequential design. Rather than beginning quantitatively, in this one, our first phase is to begin qualitatively and to explore. And from that exploration to build something such as an instrument that might fit the sample that or population you're studying, new variables, intervention activities, could be a website, could be an app. And then in the third phase, that whatever is developed quantitatively is tested out to see how it works. So this design here is extremely popular in global health right now. They need to first explore and talk to community members. Let's say you just can't drop a depression instrument into Rwanda. You've got to start talking to some people in that country, get a sense for how they view depression, modify your Western instruments, and then administer them. So that qualitative followed by a quantitative development phase, followed by then a quantitative testing phase is an exploratory sequential design. Now, if I were to look at your project, I'm going to think about which one of those designs is operating, to where you might be integrating the data. Now, you may say that you have much more going on, and these are much too simple, John, for your particular design. So what we've been thinking about is how these core designs are intersecting with or included within more complex applications. I don't know if you've seen Plano Clark and Ivan Kova's new book on a guide to mixed methods research from SAGE, but it just came out last fall. And they talk about these complex designs as being of 3 types. These core designs are put within other designs, such as within an experiment or intervention trial. These core designs can be put within another methodology, like within evaluation or network analysis. And these core designs can be put within theoretical perspectives, like within feminist theory or CBPR. It's a very interesting discussion. Now, when do you have a complex design? Typically these are multiple phase research projects, multi-year funding, large funded projects, multiple researchers. And there's a book out by Natazi and Hitchcock. You can see it cited here that kind of talks about when these complex designs, what the complex designs might be. Now, if you're doing a doctoral dissertation, typically you have more of a core design. You have a large funded project with lots of researchers. You have a more of a complex design. So that's the thinking that we're beginning to move towards. So if you see these 3 core designs, convergent, explanatory, and exploratory, it can be surrounded by an intervention trial, moving it into a complex design, into community-based participatory research, or even a social justice theoretical framework. That becomes a complex design. Or moving more into an evaluation project, or into the app development or survey development project, or even a multiple case study project. So if I worked with you, I would first look for your basic design, and then if you have these other features interfacing with it, interacting with it, I would talk about your project as more of a complex mixed methods design. Now, I mentioned once you think about your design, it opens up all these features, and this is how I view it in this slide. Once you have a reason for doing mixed methods, a problem, and let's say these three study aims, quantitative, qualitative, and mixed, you can begin thinking about what type of design you have. That's going to impact a lot of features of your project. How you write the title, what type of design you choose, and your reasons for that choice, how to draw a diagram of that design, some of the validity issues that might attach to that design, where you're going to integrate, that design impacts that, how you're going to represent the data, such as in a joint display, how you're going to actually write up the project, how you craft your study aims and questions, even where you put your theory into it. So design is a central feature for me, and it enables me to think about these parts of the research process, not in the abstract now, but in terms of how they would work within a specific design. So we've developed diagrams, as you probably know, how to visualize the procedures in mixed methods research. And we've come up with a new idea called an implementation matrix. We've known for several years that drawing a picture of your procedures in mixed methods research is an extremely useful tool to present to other team members, to present to stakeholders, proposal reviewers, graduate committee members, those that read journal articles, mixed methods journal articles. We have given a lot of thought to how to draw these diagrams. We have examples that are emerging in the literature more and more. And even in our NIH best practice guidelines, we talked about how mixed methods scholars need to have a diagram of their procedures, especially in applications for funding. So we're seeing more and more of these. Well, as time has gone on here, and I think I know my work in developing diagrams developed around 2003 when Plano Clark and I wrote a chapter in the Handbook of Mixed Methods Research where we talked about these diagrams. We weren't the first to begin talking about it, but I know at that time I was visiting with some NIH project officers, and they were saying that they really liked mixed methods, but it was much too complex to understand. You know, why don't you come up with some visual picture of what's going on? So since that time, I think we've been thinking more and more about how to draw these diagrams and what elements to put into it. So here is the diagram that's in Ivankova and Stick's 2007 article. It's an explanatory sequential design. And you see over on the left column, the general boxes for starting quantitative and then case selection and then qualitative. In the middle are the procedures that map onto each one of those phases. And then in the right column are the products. In other words, what they hope to come up with at each stage in the process. This is a really extremely popular diagram, and many people have used this for their explanatory sequential project. This is a big kind of messy diagram from my colleague Benecourt at Harvard. It was a funded project, and the study was done in Sierra Leone, looking at war-affected youth. Basically, in this, the core design was exploratory sequential, where they explored in the middle with some interviews, and then they developed an intervention, and then they tested it out. But I bring this forward to illustrate a point. You can see on the left my little box says content and methods. My point is that what do you put into these boxes as you're drawing your diagram? When Plano Clark and I first started, we would just put methods in there. But if you look at this one where I have the arrows pointing up, not only do they talk about the methods, males and females, and linear growth models, but they're also giving some content. And I find that when people draw their diagram of their procedures, they're not necessarily methodologists, and they're more familiar, of course, with their content of the project. So they'll put the content in those boxes. And so I think the best stance is to have both content and methods in a box. Another thing we've done is improved how we draw these diagrams. You can see that this one is color-coded. This was a multiple case analysis with 2 countries involved, the USA and Colombia, South America. Some of the things we can put into these, not only color coding, we can put a timeline. We can put research questions on the different phases of this. We're beginning to learn about how we can enhance these diagrams to make them interesting and more comprehensive. So drawing a diagram is useful. And my colleague Fetters at Michigan has come up with this idea of an implementation matrix. He's not the only one. In fact, this one is from Joe Gallo at Johns Hopkins. But this is a useful type of visualization of the procedures. You can see he has the strategies in one column, the sample, the goals, and analysis. And so in the best practice guideline, you will see a couple of implementation matrices. These could be an alternative to the design diagram that I've just shown you, or it could be in addition to that. Integration. How do we integrate, especially quantitative and qualitative findings? How do we begin linking them? What does the intersection look like? We know that we've known for years that this is a key feature of doing good mixed methods research. We also know that it's not clearly understood. I can't tell you how many projects I've been on where the authors say I'm doing mixed methods research, and while they may have both quantitative and qualitative data collected and analyzed, they have no clue, or they haven't given any thought to how they're actually going to mix or integrate the 2 databases. Integration is really, for many people, kind of a black box. Well, some of the advances that are coming forward, for example, Fetters, Curry, and myself, we have an article on integration. You'll see the source down there at the bottom. It's published in Health Services Research, where we're actually parsing this concept of integration into the different types. You can connect databases, you can build from one, you can merge, you can embed. Also, Jan Morse has come up with this idea of a point of interface. In other words, we can go into these design pictures and actually put an arrow indicating where the integration occurs. Yeah, I say, integration is where the quantitative data and the qualitative bump up against each other. And also, we're beginning to write scripts for what you would write about integration in your project and how you would link it into a design. So I often, in my workshops, use a picture like this to illustrate integration. We have a cake, and that flour that we put into the cake can actually disappear, merge with the other ingredients. This would be integration. Or we could put raisins into that cake, and where we're connecting those or embedding the raisins in the batter, they stay intact. That's integration as well. So something can merge and disappear, or something can stay intact. So Jan Morris's idea is, let's go into these diagrams and let's put an arrow in a box indicating where integration occurs. where in this explanatory sequential design does the quantitative bump up against the qualitative? You can see here the quantitative data are collected and analyzed, and then that builds into the types of questions qualitatively that are asked and also the people that are asked. So the integration comes right in there. And so we're beginning to put into these diagrams the box to really illustrate where integration occurs. And then I said we have some scripts that are emerging. You know, the scholars in our R25 program started saying, well, you know, how do we write this integration statement into our project? And so when you tack it over to a design, it helps you to think about the wording that you would use, such as in a convergent design, integration involves merging the results from the two databases so that a comparison could be made and a more complete understanding emerge than what was provided by the quantitative or the qualitative results alone. So you can see some of these scripts that we're now, once we have our design in mind, we can now talk about where integration and how integration occurs. Now, not only talking about it is important, but let's also illustrate where integration. Let's put into our results section of a mixed methods project a table or a graph that illustrates this integration, the connection between quantitative and qualitative. And let's also tag this over to these different designs. So we know that joint displays are coming along. There are some articles that are being written about these. Joint display is where you array your quantitative and qualitative data together to show how they're integrated. We're getting more and more useful models of how to create these joint displays, and we're linking them over to designs. Well, here's a joint display, and this is the one that came out very early for a convergent design. You can see the themes down the left, and in the middle would be the results from the interviews. And then on the right column would be the results from the survey. This is a table that enables one to compare the qualitative results with the quantitative results, put them side by side in a joint display. This is one of many examples of joint displays that are out there. And you know, people are actually developing graphs of these joint displays where the quantitative and qualitative data are graphed together. This is a project out of Data Core out of Delaware, where they studied alcohol problem severity in different counties in the state of Wyoming. And you can see the color coding indicates the severity problem. And then they pulled out quotes that they attached to these different counties so that you get qualitative, the personal views of people, as well as the quantitative severity numbers. But this shows you how you can begin graphing quantitative and qualitative data together in a single picture. I'm going to touch quickly on a couple of these because we're getting a little bit short on time. But a conceptual framework, once you have a design, you can also begin thinking about your conceptual framework, or you could call it a theory or a model, and how that informs your mixed methods project. We know that these frameworks and these models are very important to put into a project, and we can now begin linking those directly into design. I want to show you a couple possibilities. Look at this picture. This is an explanatory sequential design where we first collect quantitative data and analyze it, and then collect qualitative and analyze it, and then interpret how the qualitative helps to explain those quantitative results. But in this project, you might have a theory or a conceptual model of behavioral change that really impacts only the first phase of the project. And so we can actually put our theory into our diagram. This is actually a theoretical model that was used in a mixed methods project on family strengthening intervention in Rwanda. But what was interesting about this conceptual model is that it it applied to both the quantitative and qualitative phases of the project. It was really threaded throughout the entire study. So we're beginning to think about where theory fits into projects and how it might be used. Validity. We know it's important to have validity in any good scientific research, and validity in quantitative differs from validity in qualitative. We're more interested in drawing accurate inferences in quantitative, and we're more interested in the accuracy of our findings qualitatively. When you read articles about validity in the mixed methods field, the writers talk about quantitative, qualitative, and then mixed methods validity. And so you've probably seen some of Tony Onwuebuzi's work on validity, his work with Burke Johnson, where he's come up with his own terms, new terms for describing mixed methods validity, which he calls legitimation. Plano Clark and I call these kind of methodological issues. And we're beginning to tag validity over into these types of designs, going way back to the way Campbell and Stanley did this in 1963 when they spoke about experimental and quasi-experimental designs. So for example, we have a table like this where we talk about here are the type of designs on the left, and here are the validity challenges that might exist. Like for an exploratory sequential design, how do you work from the qualitative first phase to what needs to be designed quantitatively to be tested out, and how rigorous is that development in that middle phase when you're developing an instrument or an intervention. So we're beginning to tag our validity issues to specific designs. Now, this article that came out in Theory and Methods in Higher Education Research, Ivan Kova was involved in this, and a couple of other people, but they actually started identifying what are the validity issues within an explanatory sequential design. And I'll let you read through those. But what's important here is that when one talks about validity in mixed methods research, you can talk about it generically, and that's the legitimation topic. Or you can talk about it more specifically in terms of a design. And that's the route that I prefer to go. Validity has a very specific meaning within an explanatory sequential design or exploratory sequential design. Finally, in terms of publications, this is my last one here. We've been thinking a lot about how do you publish your mixed methods project, and that will be the subject of our workshop at Michigan in July. You can write to me if you're interested, and I'll send you the link to that. But we know that more and more studies are being published that are mixed method studies, and we know that they can be empirical studies where a database are analyzed using mixed methods procedures, or it might even be a methodological article. More and more journals are opening up, and sometimes the word count of journals is something that influences how you write your mixed methods project up. So creating multiple publications and coming up with templates for how to actually write the methods and the standards that are existing out there for how to write up a publishable mixed methods project. These are some of the advances that are coming along. Take a look at this. This is an example that I used in my Harvard class. It's a study of mammogram screening in the country of Chile in South America. What these authors did was once they finished their project, they generated a qualitative article, which is on the left. They generated a quantitative article on the right. And they then generated an integrative overview mixed methods article in the center. Now this raises that really interesting question of what did they truncate to get to their overall article. It also conveys the idea that if you need to publish, doing a rigorous mixed method study, as long as there's some type of cross-reference to these different articles you're putting out, you can get multiple publications out of a mixed methods project. So in my concise introduction book, I actually talk about ways in which you can truncate the overall project to bring it down to a reasonable word limit for the overall mixed methods publication. And then once we've got these designs, we can also look at how people are writing them up in terms of the methods, the results, and the discussion. So if you go to my concise introduction book, I actually convey some templates for writing up the method section, how you might sequence the topics, these different types of designs. The final thing to mention here is that I said the APA is coming out now with guidelines for how to write a mixed method study that'll be in the style manual. And here's kind of the flow of ideas. In your introduction, justify the need for both, create multiple study aims, identify the type of design, provide a diagram, present quantitative and qualitative data collection separately, address the integrity of the procedures, the integration, report the results, report the results in terms of joint displays. So these are very specific recommendations now about how to incorporate some of these advanced components in your mixed methods project. Here's my checklist at the end. And if I were doing a mixed methods project right now, whether I was a graduate student, putting together an application for funding, writing an article for JMMR, I would go down through this list to see if I'm incorporating the most recent advances in thinking in mixed methods research. Okay. 5 minutes for questions, according to my clock.
Okay. Yep, perfect. Thanks a lot, John. So we do have a couple people that have their hands raised. So Karine, I'll give you the microphone. If you want to introduce yourself and then ask your question. Karine, do you have a microphone?
You have to turn on your microphone. Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't look like she has a microphone. Karine, if you want to just type your question in the bottom. And we also had Chris who had a question. Chris, did you want to type your question?
I see one question I can answer immediately. Someone's asking when that workshop's going to be at Michigan. It's July 14th and 15th. It will be in Ann Arbor. Dr. Fetters, the editor of the Journal of Mixed Methods Research, myself, Tim Guetterman, Jane Foreman from the VA system will all be facilitating this. And if you were to send me an email, Creswell at umich.edu, I'll send you the link, or you could just Google the Mixed Methods Publishing Workshop at the University of Michigan.
Perfect. And so after the session is being recorded, so it will be posted on the site. People are asking how to get the slides and the recording afterwards. So they will be posted on the IIQM's website.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so we've just got a couple more minutes if anyone else does have a question. Okay, if someone, Mandy Archibald's raised her hand.
One person raised their hand. Good for you.
I've given you the microphone, Mandy, if you want to.
Mandy.
Great. Can you? Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for being on
Great,
this.
great presentation.
Thank you.
So John, I just wanted to hear from you. How would you respond to those people who feel that typologies are unnecessarily restrictive approach to design?
Yeah, unquestionably, the typology approach, those diagrams, are more of a methods orientation. I would say consider an implementation matrix as an alternative, which is more of looking at across the study different components. I especially like in that implementation matrix that you've got the outcomes listed for
Mhm.
each one of the study aims. There's a discussion in the mixed methods field, by Joe Maxwell and others about more of an interactive design model rather than a typology model. And I think that implementation matrix operationalizes that interactive process where you're looking across the different aspects of research. I've had people put into their projects really both. And I think both are helpful. What I like about the typology is that, if you put your point of interface for integration in there, it makes it very explicit that this is a mixed methods project, that you're linking the two databases.
Mhm.
So I would say either one of these methods typology pictures or an implementation matrix. In our mixed methods workshops at Michigan, we go through both, and we have participants actually develop both types of pictures for their project, and then they can decide which one they would like to use. Does that answer your question?
Great.
She may be gone.
No, I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh yeah, no, that's great, John. That's very helpful. Yeah, it's very interesting, like the alternative to typological design approach. Even, Guest's article in JMMR I thought was excellent in that respect. I have some ideas around integrating arts-based approaches into mixed methods that I'll be speaking about in Durham. So we should maybe chat about that. I feel like you'd have such great insight there. So
Yeah. Well, when Maxwell and others started talking about the integrative approach and really saying we don't like these designs, then several of us felt that moving more towards an implementation matrix would be a nice alternative, because it does talk about the integration of the different parts. It does talk about putting into a table the different parts of research. So I think there are choices out there for the researcher now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you, John.
Thanks, Mandy. Okay, we are out of time. John, there were a couple more questions. Would it be all right if I were to email them to you and you could email me the responses and I can send them to people?
I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to.
Perfect. So
this,
if anyone
let me say one final comment. This entire presentation on what are the latest advances in mixed methods research and how you could put them into your project. I've been presenting this in different venues around the world, different conferences. It'll appear in an improved version, no doubt, in the next edition of the Creswell Plano Clark Mixed Methods Research Design book. So it'll be a complete chapter in there where I'll have a little bit more detail put forward.
Great. Thank you very much, John. And just a couple of quick announcements before we go. So the Mixed Methods International Research Association is having a conference the 3rd and 5th of August, Moving Beyond the Linear Model, the Role of Mixed Methods Research in an Age of Complexity. And you can check out their website at mmira.wildapricot.org. As well, IIQM is having their Thinking Qualitatively workshop series taking place June 20th to 24th. And you can check out the website iiqm.ualberta.ca. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. If there are any last questions in the chat, I will send those to John and he will answer them, and I will email them out to the group afterwards. Thank you all for attending. John, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. And any closing words?
Thanks a lot for your time. Happy mixed methods research. And I'll see, hopefully I'll see some of you in Durham and we can chat face to face.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Okay, bye now.